So hello and welcome everybody back here. Episode 6. Oh my goodness. We have a deep conversation for you all today. Oh my goodness. So we're going to talk about the wound paradox and why our deepest hurts are often hidden in plain sight. And so this can sometimes be a little bit challenging for us to realize or recognize that these wounds or these old paradigms, these old paradoxes, these old patterns of behavior are really showing up. So we're going to dive deep into that. So if you've got any questions about it, please pop them in the chat. Do like and comment if you're watching the recording. And yeah, welcome to this beautiful podcast that we are here every month to have talk into, really like dispelling the myths of the Akashic with the Akashic Records around and bringing safety in Ascension. So how we can really be in the energy of Ascension, but stay grounded, purposeful, and driven towards what we want to create here on this planet. So that's what this podcast series is all about.
Absolutely. And also I just want to add to that we're kind of here just to also just, I think, come together as a collaborative community, and just to kind of share that, you know, we don't have to do this alone. You know, we don't have to do the journey on its own, because that feels hard, you know. That feels lonely. And you know, we're kind of sharing this wisdom just to kind of show you, actually, like model that, you know, we come together to support each other. And you know, that old adage, which always makes me shiver, is like, you know, we're all walking each other home.
Oh, I love that. That gives me the shivers just hearing you say it. But we are, aren't we? I mean, we really are. I mean, Marina and I have known each other for not a huge time, but for many lifetimes. So for a very long time. You know, if we talk on that level and that scale, but we, you know, we have the most incredible conversations. Our work is very similar. We both work with the Akashic Records. We both teach the Akashic Records. But we really have come into this beautiful collaboration of understanding each other, and how these conversations and standing side by side really support us to heal the old paradigms of competition, of we're against each other, of there's lack and uncertainty and scarcity, and coming into this beautiful energy of collaboration, abundance. There's enough for everybody, and really these conversations are the invitation for you to take what resonates and leave the rest, to really, you know, we're channeling with source. We're opening up these conversations so that we can ask better and different questions around certain topics, things that and this is where this beautiful topic around, you know, why our deepest hurts are often hidden in plain sight, is because when we don't know that they're there, we can bypass them. We can just let them go. We just continue in the same old patterns. And by having these conversations, we can bring things to the forefront. And we've been loving the feedback that we've been getting from people around their insights, their realizations, the things that the past topics have brought them. So that's our hope, that we activate and reawaken something in you from these conversations.
Absolutely. And I think this collaboration is just demonstrating the releasing and the healing individually, but also in a collective, of one of the main wounds that we have. If we get back to kind of the topic of this particular podcast, is the sister wound. You know, and we are demonstrating that the sister wound can be healed. You know, it absolutely can. And we don't have to be in competition with each other. We don't have to feel envious and jealous, which does open up the kind of scarcity threads that we may hold individually, but also it's feeling safe with other women. You know, not feeling like we're going to be stabbed in the back, or we're going to be gossiped or judged or betrayed, because, you know, that those threads, those energetics, are traumas and wounding that we are holding on to in our energetic DNA. But it's by these collaborations that we just completely dissolve those traumas, those personal traumas that we have experienced or witnessed. And also, hopefully, we inspire other people to address the wounding in themselves, and realize that it is something that we can go beyond, you know. And I know that certainly when I was because I've only been in business 7 years. And I know, Natasha, you've been in business a lot longer. But for me, at the very beginning of my business, and, you know, even kind of like 4 or 5 years in, I don't think I would be able to collaborate with somebody that was an Akashic record reader, because I would still see that as competition, and that they would be taking clients from me, or that there wasn't enough. So I definitely know that is through collaboration that has definitely been healed, or that the deepening of the healing has happened. But even to entertain that as is something that's only a fairly recent, I would say, in the last couple of years that I've been able to entertain that. So, you know, that just demonstrates to me that there's been a lot of not intentional healing, I don't think, even from my part, but just the healing that I get involved in, and that I facilitate for my own clients who have similar wounds. We are healing ourselves at the same time. So this demonstrates for me the power of healing and how we can go beyond these wounds.
Yeah. Hey, Julie, lovely to have you here. Yeah, I totally agree. You know, I don't think we have been encouraged. You know, it goes back to playground antics, doesn't it? It's like not being included, trying to be in the in crowd, you know, not being left out. And when we have been, it creates a lot of these exclusions. Like, you know, we find our little safe group, and then, you know, we how we navigate those. And I totally agree with you in the sense that, you know, done so much healing around those sister wounds. And if this is something that resonates with you, please share it as well. And, you know, sometimes they show up still in little ways, you know, these little flickers of something. It's like, oh, you know, and so we're delayering these old paradigms. They're so deeply ingrained in us. That's why they're hidden in plain sight, because it's just so part of our makeup, so part of our coding, so part of our programming, not just from when we were in the playground, but through our parents and through generational traumas and everything else like that. It was never encouraged that we should all, you know, be equal in that sense, and that we can, you know, be careful what and it's like boyfriends and, you know, partners, and like people being taken away. And I remember at school, you know, fancying someone, and, you know, then a friend would be going out with them, and it was like the deepest wounds, the deepest pain, the deepest hurt. How could you do that to me? And not really understanding that. And it's old programming that really does come up. So, you know, these are some of the wounds. You know, there are, you know, we talk about wounding a lot. You know, how do they really show up for us? And we can, when we notice and we shine a light on them, we can really, my experience now is that we can dispel them really quickly, especially when we're having conversations like this.
I think just even showing up and listening. To this conversation, there's going to be healing and activations. But I think what would be useful from my perspective, I'm just going to read just a little bit of information of what soul wounds are, because some people might be just kind of listening to us for the first time, or might be completely new to who we are and the work that we do. So from my understanding, a soul wound is a past emotional injury that manifests pain-based identities. So we take these painful experiences and they begin to define us by the themes. So seeing ourselves as victims, broken, or shameful. And then these soul wounds have us create stories which then limit us to small worlds, small dreams, and unfulfilling relationships. So we can really allow these wounds to define who we are and our identity. And it's just not truth, but because there's the emotional pain connected to it, that's how it kind of almost keeps us trapped in a cage. So they show up through repeat patterns of behavior, limiting beliefs and mindset, and attracting similar themed circumstances. And the types of wound that I'm aware of is the soul wounds, the mother wound, the sister wound, the witch wound. There is the father wound, and then there is the brother wound as well. The witch wound is a collective wound. Of course, we could have also experienced that personally, but there is the witch wound as a collective thing as well. But most of our wounding is personal. from what I understand.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to kind of just explain a little bit from my understanding of what these wounds are.
Yeah. And if you've got questions as well around what wounding is, or if there's something specific that comes up for you, then please put them in the chat. And, you know, if you're watching the recording, we'll come back to them. You know, and we also talked before we went live around the money wounds, and you know, these patterns are generational as well, passed down generation after generation and generation, but they're also held in the collective. And then we have our individual wounds as well. And I really feel that now, you know, as things change, as times change, you know, it is becoming more and more our responsibility to shine a light, turn the lights up, and notice these things, to not allow these things to be hidden any longer in plain sight. I think this is our responsibility now as soulful leaders, as leaders, you know, shining the way forward and trying to create the change and releasing the old paradigms. Like, how do we take responsibility for these wounds that show up? And I'm just giggling because I'm like, I can hear them chattering away, you know, like in my mind, and going, oh, you know, don't do this, or do this, or how should you do this? And I've become so awareness. And, you know, Marina, you talk about soulful awareness. It's like, it's really becoming aware of what these things are, these paradigms, these repeating stories that we're repeating time and time again, because, you know, they are perceivably holding us safe. You know, we think we have to hold on to these old ways of being because we're safe when we're in conflict with others, you know, safe on my own, individuality, uphold my belief, I'm right, everybody else is wrong. You know, they give us this illusion of being safe, but we're not. You know, as we talked about at the beginning, you know, when we come into connection and collaboration with others, you know, it's a less lonely path, and we get to experience ourselves through others in a much more held way, when it's done with love, when it's done when we're both, you know, moving through, or as a collective moving through things. So I really feel it comes back to this sense of like, what are we noticing? What are we willing to be aware of? What are we still hiding from? And this is the great question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we need to, I think for me personally, it's always beneficial to have a little check-in and just notice how you're doing on the old wound front factor. For me, a great way to kind of see your progress and experience your progress and witness your progress is to think about the things that used to trigger you, that used to bring up an emotion or a negative narrative or whatever it might be, a memory, and then reflect on that same thing. And does it still invoke that same emotion? And if it doesn't, you feel more neutral, you feel more able to analyze and see that situation or whatever that might be for what it is, and you don't have any emotion connected to it, then you've healed that wound. And so I think it's always important that we celebrate our progress through this journey as well, because we have to. We're here to validate ourselves. We're not waiting for validation or confirmation from others. We're here. We have the responsibility to do that for ourselves. And for me, it's also just a nice little kind of like ego, you know, see, we are doing stuff, and this stuff does actually work, because I can feel it, you know, I can see the progress. But I think quite a lot of us would resonate, not for me so much the mother wound, although there has been a bit of mother wounding, but I know that certainly some of my clients have had major mother wounds. And so mother wounds, similar to father wounds, it impacts your self-esteem, it impacts your worth, feeling inadequate. You may have behaviors of perfectionism because you're really trying to get it right for the parent, for that particular parent. So you can get some kind of love or acknowledgement. There will be the lack of self-love, lack of perhaps acceptance. There may be elements of dependency that comes through in your relationships, and wanting to control as well. So that's some of the effects of the mother wound. And then the sister wound goes more with comparinitis, envy, comparing yourself. It's feeling insecure around other females, and this is the same with the brother wound. It would be obviously masculine, feeling insecure, having this certainly for male brother wound. It's very much this competition, but more of a physical aspect of the competition, where for women it's more of the social aspect of competition, and worth and esteem and all of that. Yeah. But the envy and the jealousy will come through in both brother and sister wounds. Yeah. The lack of trust, feeling that if there's parents involved, that you were, the other sibling was the favourite. But it then just doesn't impact. It impacts all of your relationships with other males and females. So yeah. You can have a sister wound and not have a sister, yeah. So, and a brother wound. It's just how you feel around that particular sex. Yeah. And how you respond. And some of that may not be from this lifetime. It could be you have this deep distrust of women and you have no idea why. You can't actually connect it to anything in this lifetime. Yeah. So that's really, this is where the Akashic Records is amazing, to come in and connect to a root cause of where you are carrying that deep wounding from another lifetime, and you can start to heal it.
Yeah.
We don't have to carry this stuff. We don't have to carry it.
No. I think it really is time to give ourselves permission to put this stuff down and to really see what's available to us in the space that we create when we put it down, that we don't need to carry these wounds that we again, we've been carrying for lifetime after lifetime. And when we can really identify with why we're still carrying them after all this time, when we look back at past life experiences, it really gives us that insight to go, oh, okay, that I don't connect with that anymore, perhaps, or I don't identify with that from this lifetime, or it might trigger something that is very, very present in this lifetime, and how you actually release it. I mean, there are some things, like there are some woundings and things that I will say, and I'll be like, wow, that's so interesting when someone says it back to me, and I'm like, did I actually say that? Like, I didn't even realize I still carry that, but it's so unconscious, so hidden. And then that is the opportunity for me to say, do I choose to carry it now moving forward, or do I choose to put this down and lay this to rest and really look at what might be behind it, so I don't carry it forward. And as we lay things down, as we release it, as I release it from my physical cellular DNA and coding, I'm no longer emitting that frequency, that coding, that wound out through what my actions and what I'm doing. And therefore I have disconnected myself from contributing that old paradigm to the collective. And I think that is the power of releasing these things that we underestimate. And it's not our responsibility to do that, as in, like, we must do this because we have to save everyone else. That's not what this is about. This is about giving ourselves permission to lay it down. Just like one of my mentors talks about, laying down the rope. Just put down the rope. Stop fighting. Stop feeling like we're playing this tug of war the whole time, and put it down. But as we do, we shift to a different frequency and a different energy out into the collective, and we stop contributing to it. And that is the incredible ripple effect of the work that we do as individuals. Holding each other's hands, walking side by side, going, hey, did you realize you just said that? I'm like, oh, thank you. Eek, that hurt. That's not comfortable, but okay, I will look at it and I will lay it down. And that's the beauty of it, I think.
And I think also what this is an invitation, and this is where sometimes we have to be radically honest, and we do this in a very safe and held space, is where we wear those wounds as badges of honor, because it gives us attention, or we can gain attention from others, and we've very much woven our identity into the wounding. And so we may not realize we're wearing them as badges of honor, but I think that's where we have to, if things are not shifting for you and you're feeling stuck, that would be something that I would look at, is, are you using your wounding, or whatever it might be, the trauma, or whatever it might be, as a way to, as part of your identity, as a way to be validated, as a way to be recognized, to be seen, to be heard. And are you ready to release that and find your true identity past the wounding from a really healthy space?
Yeah.
Because you still will be heard and seen, and you will still have that connection, but it comes from a much less toxic place, and it's you're more complete, you're more whole. But I think we have to sometimes see where we hold on to some of these things, but we don't want to let them go, because there's a fear that we will be rejected, we'll be abandoned, or we haven't got anything to talk about, or we haven't got a way to connect with people because we're not talking about this issue, or trying to find a way to heal, or whatever the thing is. I think we have to be mindful around that. Some things we've got to let them go.
And it always comes back to compassion and doing this with love, with kindness. This is the new paradigm. This is the age of Aquarius, that we're doing this with all, that's why it's like holding my hand gently and just shining a light and going, hey, are you aware? And there are a lot of like ways that this is done in an unsafe way that further puts us into fight and flight. And so if anyone ever, or if any of those feelings then become heightened, what we do is we entrench them even further. So holding it lightly, holding it with love, doing this in a safe space with someone that you trust. We're just here to shine the light on something for you that you may be going a little bit recognized and still a bit hidden. And even though it's right there for you, I feel this. I keep wanting to shout. So it's so interesting, isn't it? Because the main triggers that are caused by us are, there are 5 main: the rejection, the abandonment or loss, there's betrayal, there's denial, there's judgment. And it's neither one nor the other. Marina and I were talking about this before. I was very good at being the good girl, like keeping the peace, doing things, and making sure that everything was I was just don't put your head too high above the parapet, don't make yourself too noticed. Yet on the other side, some things I was a very good reactor, creating a drama, so it was for me it was around judgment, stay quiet, don't be judged, but then also don't judge me, I'm right, kind of response reactor mode again. And so they can show up in different ways, and so but they're the same kind. They may come from the same place, the same wounding, the same trigger that's activating them, just on the other end of the spectrum. So I was quite good at doing both. I became very good at doing both in different situations with different people, depending on where I was. So, and then to sort of trying to think that these things were separate was adding to my confusion about how I was showing up for things. But when I started to realize they were actually the same thing, just on the polar end of the scale, and given where I felt safe to be reactor, but where I felt safer to be the good girl and just stay here, don't say too much. And so, but it was the same pattern, same wounding that was creating that. And when I realized that, I could heal it at a very different level. Lot of magic people do this work very judgmental. Are you saying that a lot of magic, people who work with magic, are very judgmental? Is that what you mean? Just to clarify
a bit more on that, Mary.
It's good to see you know what you mean, because I have some thoughts already created, but I just want to be sure that
so for me, my wounding is definitely more child, go into the child, go into being scared of rejection and abandonment and not being good enough. So that's always my kind of that's where my wounding takes me. And my reaction is to not react. I go into freeze response. I can't react. My mind, or traditionally my mind, has gone blank, because for me, it's me. I've done something wrong. And so one of the things that I would do once I eventually was able to speak, which took a long time because I was trying to get over the emotion of feeling hurt because I thought I'd done something wrong, then I would then go into fixer mode. How do I fix this? How do I create the solution so that this thing, this challenge, this heated discussion or whatever can go away? Because I can't handle the emotion of this heated discussion, because I think it's my fault that this heated discussion is happening. So I know that I've done, not intentionally done a lot of work on that, but I know that my wounds have been healed around that, because if this comes up now, I have a very different response. I don't go into my inner child. I can think clearly. I can articulate myself. I don't go into this freeze response at all.
Yeah.
I may need to have a little pause and kind of like understand actually what's happening.
Yeah.
But I can respond in a much more grown up kind of way, and realize that my worth is totally intact. I'm not going to be abandoned. I'm not going to be rejected. And I feel really good about that, because I never used to feel good before. I felt that I wasn't representing myself in the best way, but I didn't know how to respond. I've almost had to teach myself, again, not consciously. This is something that's just evolved with the healing work, indirect healing work that I've been doing and involved in and hosting for my clients, that this has been a beautiful, happy byproduct of, how I now respond to wounding, which is just amazing. I'm so grateful for that, because that kept me stuck for a long, long time.
Yeah. And again, hidden in plain sight. We know we do it. We don't, it's so interesting, isn't it? And it's the same with what I was talking about. And, now I don't react to things. I'm like, there may be a momentarily reaction and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Okay, now I'm behaving from a wounded place.
Yeah.
So let me just take a breath. Let me just put this down for a second. Let me inquire. Let me be aware of it. Let me just see what it is that's bringing this up, because we're still human. It's like we don't eliminate these things entirely, that a new situation will arise that will just create a response, a freeze or flee or flight mode, and our responsibility, as we said, is to just be aware of it, to recognize it, to see, oh, okay, this is what's coming up for me. And I can now so much more easily and quickly notice these things. Not comfortable, like easy and quickly does not mean it's comfortable, but it allows me to move through it much quicker. And I can just take a step back and say, okay, right, I'm not going to respond to this right now in this moment. And this for me is leadership. And what you were saying as well, Mary, about a lot of judgment. I think this is, again, is like we wrap it up in spirituality and say, we must not be judgmental. But I find a lot of spiritual therapists, teachers, and it's like it's wrapped up in so much judgment of they're right, everyone else is wrong. And I'm like, oh, and this again is a huge part of the conversations that Marina and I have had, about this healing. Is like, we're not against each other. There is no right and wrong. We just have a different opinion. And that's why when we're having these podcast episodes, it's like every opinion is valid. Like whatever, if you don't agree with us, it's valid. But like, let's leave judgment at the side, that I'm right, you're wrong. We're all right. We're all correct.
Yeah,
we're
absolutely.
all trying to find our own way.
Yeah, there's no one truth. And that's the thing that we've really got on this planet of duality, where there is no one truth. And that's the thing that people are still fighting about, religions and all of this stuff. It's like that, their truth is the right truth, and there is no one truth. Yeah. If we can all agree on that, then blimey, we'll be able to
I'm just going to say, like, could you imagine the world if we could just say, like, I choose this, but you go choose this. If you feel that's right, and then somehow in the middle, what will happen is we'll find some mutual ground that we can walk the path still together, having different viewpoints, different understandings, coming at things from a different perspective. And that is what I feel we are now being invited to do in this ascension process. How we stay safe in this ascension process as we move through the shifts in consciousness, understanding, leadership, how we start to do things differently, but yet stay safe, that we are safe here. We don't have to fight each other. We can have different opinions and still be okay with that. The trigger, the wounding that's in plain sight is our responsibility to heal, not for someone else to change their perspective and their viewpoint in order to fit with your paradigm.
Yeah, it's for us to then feel better about our opinion or whatever. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally agree.
So it's wrapped up in so much. It's wrapped up, and we're still here living through the old paradigms, but as we change it, this is the ripple effect. We're contributing to something new and different. We're not there yet. We haven't created new earth, new world. We haven't created what's round the corner for us at the end of this year, in a few months' time, even tomorrow, let alone what the world is going to look like and our viewpoints are going to look like in 5, 10, 50, 100, 1,000 years' time. We're all contributing to that right here, right now, in this moment. So what are we choosing? And that's the beauty that we get to control.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah. Just reading what Mary John has to say. So Mary is saying, I now only bother with a few people. I know it's not my fault, it's themselves. I do sometimes tell them. Okay. So lots of magical people do this work. Very, therapist. Yes. Okay. I know, learn life with my scares. Yeah, I'm aware now too. Yes, all the way. That's what I see. That. This more so in Spain and UK. It's very judgmental.
Are you from Spain, Mary?
And you probably would find that there will be more like certain qualities of community, nationalities, in terms of judgment and stuff like that. But we've still got to keep showing up and keep sharing the light and showing that and showing people that there is different ways of approaching life and connection and relationships, and we can accept each other, be more accepting of each other, be more accepting of ourselves, because that's essentially what it is, isn't it? I mean, the whole judgment piece, if we're impacted by judgment, there's still an aspect of ourselves that is holding, that wound, or the shadow part of us are still holding that aspect of judgment. So that's why we feel impacted by it, or we attract it, is because we hold that within ourselves. So
yes, and that's not always comfortable.
No,
not always comfortable to realize or take responsibility for, as I'm very well aware. And it's, this is the beauty of it. It's like, it's not always comfortable, and it's okay to feel uncomfortable. It's okay to ask for help, ask for guidance, ask for support, either from the Akashic Records, from our soul sisters sitting in another part of the country, but like literally on the other side of the screen. It's okay to ask for support and guidance around these things. And this is what's given me, I think, a big lifeline, is to recognize I don't have to walk this path alone. I have come from someone who was single for many, many years, of like, I know how to do this. I've got this. I don't need anyone. I'm independent. I'm this independent, strong woman. And now I'm like, I'm okay with asking for help. I love asking for help, and I love giving it. But it's this mutually, like, it's this mutual exchange of like, I can help you, you can help me, and everyone kind of has different skills. We're all unique. We know that. We go to different people for different things, and it's like, what are we asking from people? Like, how do we identify what we need help with? How can we ask for it very specifically? Akashic Records love specificity and intention. Like, what is it you're asking for guidance around? Rather than, I just need some help. It's like, you get help. It's like, no, I didn't mean that.
Yeah.
I want it like
Absolutely.
that. That doesn't help me or serve me. So, getting okay with asking for the help around releasing this wounding and these different types of wounds that we still hold. And I recognize I still hold them.
Yeah. So what do you think in terms of small wounds versus big wounds? Do you think, what do you feel there is a difference there?
Yeah, I think small wounds can sometimes be, they're so under the surface that we don't even know that we're holding them. We don't even know that we're saying them. They don't really like grate on us or create such a response mechanism in the physical body for me. If it's a small wound, I have to be super hyper vigilant and aware of it and just go, oh, and it could very easily pass me by. I feel like small wounds that they're just like, there's just like a little, really like fine.
It's like a nick.
Yeah. Something that doesn't really irritate us. A pimp, like something that's just like, oh, that's okay. It's a bit irritating, but it's fine. I can live with it. Whereas a big wound, I think, really impacts us very strongly. It will impact our relationships, how we relate to others, victimization. It will impact our health as well. It will have a much more physical impact in our experience, I feel, either through health and well-being, through relationships and how we relate to others, like be that romantic relationships or other, again, parents, all these, parents, siblings, how we identify and who we are with ourselves, and also around money and how we cope, how we create. Like nothing in our life will be working, a bit like everything will feel like a bit like hard work, hard slog, or certain areas will. And those things
it's like an enduring part of our personality that is connected in with that wound.
Yeah, that's a good word. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, no, I very much agree. I think the small wounds do seem like momentarily there, and it doesn't feel really, really painful. It's just like you say, it's like an annoyance. It's
an irritation.
It is tolerant, and it's something that could go under the radar for quite a while. And then, if there's a number of similar small wounds, though, it's almost like they can collate together to make this big wound, which is great if we decide then that actually, say for instance, we've got self-esteem or self-worth is an ongoing thing that is undermining and self-sabotaging. It's creating these self-sabotaging patterns in all areas of our life. It could be that there's a number of these smaller wounds, smaller experiences that have now been banded together to create this one big wound. So if we really tackle that, then actually what we're doing is we're healing lots of different little wounds there. So it's fabulous.
Yes.
But I think probably that there is this kind of like collation, just adding another layer, adding another scab onto the thing, adding another scab.
The layers.
It gets to a point, I think, that it perhaps does turn into a bigger wound. If it's not sorted out, just, intermittently, then that is going to turn into a big wound because we're not looking at.
No, I think it means that. Yeah, it will impact us more deeply, right?
Yeah.
And so how do we notice them? And I think, for me, in terms of really bringing this awareness to it, is to really sit down and perhaps journal. Like this is where I started. If you're really not aware of these wounds, and if you feel like there are big wounds that you are avoiding, not tackling, is to sit down and just journal over the day. It might just be bullet points if you're not into journaling, but just spending a little bit of time reflecting back on the day. What triggered you? What showed up that wasn't comfortable? What really activated your nervous system? Because your nervous system is a very good indicator of something being triggered. You'll feel that the anxiety will grip you, the panic attacks, the feeling of I'm out of control, I don't know how to control it, and then you can start to unpack these and see what are the threads. And I think that was the real thing for me. Over time, I could read back over my journal and I could see, oh my gosh, there's a real pattern playing out here. These feel very different and very isolated and very individual, but actually there is a pattern playing out here. And so over time, these things become aware. And once you become aware, then we have to make a choice. How do we choose? Do we choose to continue doing them? Or do we choose to seek help, do the things that we know make us or support our nervous system to feel better, to release them, whatever that might be? There are so many incredible beautiful, beautiful modalities out there that can support us to release these things. The Akashic Records may or may not be your thing. If they are, then great, get in touch with one of us. But if they're not, this is the beauty of the work and the time that we live in right now, I feel, is that there's so many different choices and so many different things available for every single one of us. Do what resonates. Find the person that resonates, call it out, say, hey, I need some help. Like, show me the person that's going to help me with the first step. It might not be like step 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Just be the first person. You'll be amazed how quickly that person shows up in your experience. So it's like, how do we choose? What choices are we making? Because once you have awareness, it comes down to choice. Do I choose to continue doing this? Do I choose to somehow create a new pattern and change it?
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with all of that.
We choose.
And there's so much free resource out there, you know, and journaling prompts and meditations and affirmation. There's no way that you can't start this healing process because there's so much resource out there. So that in itself is a choice. So are you creating excuses about taking a bit of time, finding the time, making yourself a priority because you are worthy of that time of actually starting some kind of healing process? And if you're telling yourself that you don't have time, then there's a wound there that's telling you that you don't have time. So it's really even those excuses that we come up with, that's masking something that could be healed. So
because it all depends on what we prioritize, right? It's amazing. Like I've lived that wounding. I don't have time. There's not enough time for that. But when I've reprioritized what's important to me, the choices that I'm making, it's so amazing what we have time for. It's the time thing is like, we don't have time is because you're giving yourself the excuse that you don't want to look at it. You don't want to, that you're safer. You put your in the illusion of feeling safer, not looking at it. We keep saying ourselves, I don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have the resources. I don't have enough money. We can always find what we need, because firstly, we don't particularly need a lot of time. 1 minute, several times a day, just to sit down, do something that's for free, find a free meditation, find like a journal, note. These things can be really, and create more time for ourselves and create more abundance, more financial abundance. And we talked about money as well. You know, we're gonna have a whole topic on money, because we feel
we're going to do a whole episode on money.
You know, that's a whole episode in itself. And if there are other episodes you really want to hear us talking about, other things that you want us to talk into, then please put them in the comments, send us a DM, because we would love to know what you want us to talk about. This is really important. These are, like, we love having these conversations, but if you want us to talk about something, we're so up for it. So let us know. Go draw up a list now as if I'm a millionaire. Yeah, you are it already. There is a timeline that exists that you are already a millionaire. So right from that place, it already exists. So be in that energy, and create your desires from that space. It doesn't matter that we are not it already in this moment, from this perception, but from a different point of moment in time, from a different perspective, we are. So be in the energy. We have to live it. To become it, we have to embody it now. We have to start embodying it now. So it's a big topic, right? But it's how do we do this with come back to love, to come back to nurture, come back to kindness, and come back to being with people and surrounding yourself with people that don't trigger and activate your nervous system, that support you, harm you, allow you to feel a different frequency of support. I think that's really important.
And I think, again, just going back to the point of when you start this journey, just again, continue to celebrate yourself and notice the progress that you are experiencing as you become less triggered and less wounded. You feel less wounded. Now, you're never probably going to completely get rid of all your wounds. Who knows? I don't know. And I also don't want to have this as a kind of like an excuse to, I've got to go on this massive healing journey and I've got to heal all my wounds and I haven't got time to, you know, have a human experience or do all of that. Or, you know, because some of us can definitely be on that. I'm constantly trying to heal myself because there's something wrong with me. That I need to fix something, and that's not what we're saying here. This is about soulful self-awareness, taking radical responsibility, doing what we can in the moments that we have, in the time that we're making available, and celebrating the progress that we make as we navigate our experience. We have our human experience, but we get less triggered by the shit that goes on around us or the people that we have connections with. That's the thing. We've also got to actually celebrate the things, the circumstances, the people and all of that do trigger the fuck out of us, because they're showing us we've still got a little bit of healing to do. So that's really useful, because it's kind of like, oh yeah, I've done it all, it's all perfect, and then it's like, actually the universe sends somebody along, it's like, actually no, you haven't, there's still this little bit to do. And so celebrate that as well, because again, I think we get a bit down on ourselves. It's like, oh my God, I'm never going to get out of this. And it's like, well, no, this is about having the journey and just being in the journey and doing the ups and downs of life. It's like, it's just part of what we've signed up for this. Remember, we did sign up for this. Sometimes people are like, why would I sign up for this?
Well, that's a good question. Why, Marina?
Well, some of us have got karmic growth lessons. Some of us have karmic debt. And so we've got to come back to actually come back. But we have a choice. I'm sure we do have a choice when we're in the life in between lives, and we're in the halls of Amenti, and we're having all our karma weighed and all of that, whatever actually happens. And we do agree to come back down. We do make another soul contract to actually, I want to refine that particular thing, and I would like to actually be on the other side of that, just to try that bit of the human experience, because I've not done that yet. So we do this. Again, I'm not sure why, but we do. It's to experience total separation. That's what we've come to this particular planet for, because it's the harshest planet. It's the most separated individual planet that we can have a full human experience and be a soul in a physical body and have free will. It is the only planet that has free will, from what I understand. And so to actually be chosen to get into the physical body, we've had to have done like thousands of incarnations to even be able to get into a physical body. So that in itself is a celebration that we've done that and we've put the time in.
Yes, celebration is key. I'm like all for celebrating. It's such an important part.
Enough.
We don't do it enough, but it's so true, and that is also a wounding, that we mustn't celebrate ourselves. We mustn't be too much for people. Don't show up too much, because people won't like us. We're like, on one hand we tell people, oh my gosh, you're amazing, that's amazing, go, like, and then if we start doing it for ourselves, oh well, that's a bit egoic, oh you're being too much, don't piss people off, like just keep it under the radar. And so we're so confused around this idea of celebration. Well, celebrate the hell out of yourself, because you are doing an amazing job. You are in the perfect place. You're doing the best you can, given everything you have right before you right now. Every choice that you walk towards more liberation, more freedom for yourself to be more uniquely you, has to be celebrated, because it is a huge step. It might feel like this and it's inconsequential, but every single step leads to the bigger quantum leap that we make. We only celebrate the big things, celebrate the small things. I kid you not, I celebrate every single day. I sit here and something comes in, I'm like, and I do myself a little dig, or I do myself a little dance, a happy dance, and it makes me feel good. And it's like every time someone signs up to something, I have Post-it notes celebrating every single person that signs up to something. Like there's Post-it notes all over my wall. I have to put my laptop like this. But like, I celebrate everyone that says yes to themselves, because you deserve celebrating when you show up to say yes and make a different choice for yourself. And I celebrate you wholeheartedly. So celebrate yourself, and celebrate others. Like, it's like, we get to have that. We get to have that. Give yourself that. It's a beautiful energy to be in, and not always comfortable to start with. I've definitely got better.
But it definitely, for that celebration in itself, is activating healing within you around your self-worth, your self-confidence, and your self-esteem. So some of these wounds that you have from wherever they're rooted, from whatever experiences, you just celebrating you and the things that you're doing, the things that the person that you are being, will help to heal some of those wounds. And I think probably that's how I've, I say indirectly, I don't know, I've not purposely gone and specifically said I want to heal this wound and I've done the work. I haven't done that, but I think celebration has probably been a massive part of me. Just actively celebrating myself has been a part of that healing process, for sure.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
So I think one other thing is really, to really recognize these wounds, I think, is to recognize the stories you have on repeat, and to ask yourself, what meaning am I attaching to those stories, to these experiences that I feel, that this thing that keeps playing out. And I think that will also help you to shine a light on those woundings that are hidden in plain sight, that either are big wounds. Sometimes we just don't want to look at the big wounds as well, so they're hidden very much in plain sight, and people will say, oh, stop being like that, and you're like, being like what? And it's like, you don't even want to hear it. So big wounds can also be hidden in plain sight, even though they feel more uncomfortable. So like, really allowing yourself, what are the stories we tell ourselves stories. And I was telling Marina before, like, it's like a little chatter in my ear, and I sometimes do look at myself and go, what on earth are you saying to yourself? Like, what are you talking about? This is like nonsense. And I call my ego out, and I call the story out, and I call out the meaning that I've attached to it, and go, is this actually true? Is this truth? Or am I just making this up because it feels better, more righteous? I'm right. Like, don't you say that about me because I'm right. And so it's like, notice these things, have humor about it. That is one thing that saved me. I like to be serious about things, and if I've got a job to do, like healing, be serious about it. It's very important. But like, as soon as I've kind of been lighter about it, I've kind of been like, you know what, have more fun with this, have more joy with this. It doesn't have to be difficult. This is also an old paradigm. Like, the spiritual path is hard work. You've got to do the hard work. You've got to do the healing. You've got to release all these wounds, these old paradigms. Give yourself a break. It's like, it really doesn't have to be that serious. It can feel very serious. I'm not denying that. But actually, when we recognize that it's a story, we're putting on loop, we have on loop, we've attached meaning. Ask yourself, with a kind heart, with a light heart, is this really true? If you look at it really truly, is it true? Truth.
And I think you're right. Some of that healing can be done through play. Through play and pleasure, not pain. Because we think that everything has to be learned and completed through pain, and that's old paradigm as well. So we can do some of this through pleasure and play as well.
Yeah, I totally agree that, I am more playful as a 50-year-old woman than I was in my 20s and 30s. And you have to have a good time, but it wasn't playful. It was like, now I get to be playful in my life. I get to call in what I choose. I get to show up how I choose, consciously or with awareness choose. And sometimes I don't always make the right choices, but the awareness shows me, maybe didn't get that quite right. Okay. Lesson learned, awareness created. Okay, how do I choose to do that differently next time? And that's the beauty. And we don't want to get trapped in these healing cycles, as Marina said. Really, really.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I was just looking at Mary's comments. So Spain has celebrate everything. Yeah, I definitely think that there is countries that are more in that celebration energy, and I wonder if Spain is also part of. It's obviously more a part of their culture, but it's also, I think, because of the weather. I think depending on the weather, whether we choose to believe that or not, but I think the weather does have an impact on people's moods and actually what you're physically be, able to do outside, which is, connect with nature and have the sun shining. Everybody feels in a better mood. So we're more likely to celebrate. When we get a bit of sun in the UK, the shorts do go on, the vests do go on, the sandals come out, everybody's doing a barbecue, everybody's having a drink. We do celebrate, and obviously the drinking could, be probably taken a bit too far. But we can celebrate. But it's the weather that definitely kind of influences it here in terms of whether we choose to celebrate or not.
Yeah, I think so. Like today it was raining and miserable and grey, and I felt heavy today. I felt my energy has been shifted today, but this conversation has livened me up and really, shifted my energy into one that feels far more aligned, because these are the conversations that, I love to have and support each other through them. And, I really do think have more conversations, speak into these things that are uncomfortable. The more I do that with someone like Marina and my mastermind groups, with my own clients, because we're all doing the work together for each other, with each other, alongside each other, having these conversations are healing in themselves. I think sometimes we think talking therapies are passe. It's like, don't keep entrenching yourself in the story. But what's the difference? Are we healing out our way through the story because it's bringing an awareness to something, or are we just entrenched in talking about the same thing and the problem, or are we looking for solutions?
Are we complaining about it, or
are we
bringing it to the light and then we're just releasing it?
So for as an example, I'm part of a mastermind group, and we have a little WhatsApp group, and we leave each other messages, voice notes, and I'll be, something will come up and I'll be like, oh, this is interesting, and I'll talk into it, and within 5 minutes of talking, I'm like, oh, this is what it is. Oh, okay. And in that already something has shifted and released, and then I'll get a reflection from somebody else in the mastermind, and then within an hour I'm like, oh my gosh, this is totally alchemized in my body. This has totally shifted. I've totally released something new has dropped in the space, and I'm already different. That is the power of conversation when we do it in that way, and not in the complaining space. Speak about it with people who support you, help you to shift, help you to move forward. This is our hope for these podcasts as well, is that we bring something to the surface. We give you an opportunity to shine a light on it and choose differently, whatever that might be.
So Mary, you need a solution. So I would start with a little bit of journaling, and then see where that takes you, and obviously reach out to either me or Natasha, and
I'm loving all your comments. Wow, Mary, thank you so much for those. I haven't read all of those, but thank you. But yes, reach out and let us know what you feel into that solution. Journal about it. What feels right? What do you need? What's the first next step that you are being guided to take? And trust that. Lean into it. Take a step. Take action. Back up that intuitive wisdom with an action step, and something else will unfold from it. I always believe the next few steps cannot be unfolded or released or given to us until we take one step in that direction. So it all starts with one step. So take a step.
Keep taking steps. So when is our next session?
Oh, it is on Monday the 17th of June at 3:30 p.m. UK time. Same time as today. So always UK time for us. So pop that date in your diary if you want to come and join us for that. And we're going to talk about something that actually came out of this conversation with us, and we felt was a whole nother topic in its own right, around labeling, how we label things, and narcissism in particular, and that label, because we feel that that's been coming up for us both, in the sense of like a lot of our client work, how that's been really being called to speak into. So we really want to speak into that the labeling of things, narcissism, other labeling things, other things we've given label to, and how do we navigate that when we've got the label? So yeah. Did you want to add something to that?
No, I think no, you've covered it in terms. Is a label helpful or is it a limiter? That's kind of what we want to look at, because lots of things are being labeled. People are really looking for labels for clarity, for confirmation of some kind. But then do we then hold ourselves to ransom with that label? So I think it would be just good to speak into that a little bit more, for sure.
Yes. Yeah. So let us know if you've got questions about that you want us to lean into, or that you want answered. Then that would be great, because we can really make that episode around answering those questions that you have around it. It's just been coming up a lot in our sphere, so we feel it needs a space to be talked about, and how we can move through it and navigate it perhaps with a slightly different perspective.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Oh,
so
beautiful
amazing
to have you all here.
Thank you so much,
and we'll see you next month.
Absolutely. So don't forget to put #replay in the comments below if you've got any feedback, anything that you've really enjoyed about this particular episode, anything you want us to speak into future episodes, then just let us know in the comments. So thank you for all of your time and energy. It's been amazing to have you all here.
Yeah, we appreciate you, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Love and blessings.
Love and blessings.